just can't get a mortgage, and around here the house prices are so high.
Come on, baby.
I haven't asked him whether he thinks I'm stupid or brave.
I haven't got any option. If you've got to do it, you've got to do it.
Wow. So tell me what your reaction is to this.
I'm quite surprised. I'm quite liking it.
Or you could get the whole section of the plane as a ready-made bit of building.
Oh, what have they done?
I've got some drawings, actually. It's as
Drawings?
good as it gets.
How much money have you got left? Let me see.
No point in crying over a cardboard cottage.
This has been my dream since I was probably about 16, to be as self-sufficient as I can.
In terms of materials, I don't expect this roof to cost more than maybe 100, 150 quid.
So how do you build a house with no drawings? Do you trust that it's going to be beautiful?
Yes, absolutely.
I just wonder how they're ever going to make any progress.
Why did I leave that nice house in Sheffield? Central heating would be wonderful.
Most people who take on a self-build are taking on the biggest challenge of their lives. But I'm on my way to West Wales to meet a couple who have set themselves even higher standards, trying to live off the land while they're building the house, and to do it with almost no money.
It's been my dream since I was probably about 16 to be as self-sufficient as I can. The whole process of sort of from seed to plate, I just find really wonderful. I think it's something very... Gosh, I can hardly even describe it because it's so deep ingrained in my life.
One of the first things that you notice is that you don't get this chunk of money going into your bank account at the end of every month. And it takes some getting used to.
Condition of our planning is to be able to support ourselves 75% of our needs from the land. It's more than a full-time job, isn't it? There's never a bored moment. There's never really a time for sitting down, relaxing. The trouble is, I reckon...
We're actually standing on the plot of land on which we're going to build a low-impact timber frame straw bale home.
Well, this is our kind of like our driveway, and this is the floor plan.
All these logs that you can see lying around are the frame for the house. The shell of the building might cost £4,500, something like that. You know, it's not a lot of money really, but it's time and effort.
I don't want to have this really austere, sort of hard life for the rest of my life. You know, I want to show that actually, you know, we can be comfortable, we can flick a switch and have the light on, we can turn on the tap and have hot water. You know, I want all that, but in a low-impact way.
You must be Kieran.
I am. Nice to meet you, Henry. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm Jane.
Nice to see you. And we're standing on the site of your future home. I can see a beautiful view when the weather's a bit better. Probably reveals itself in that direction. But just tell me a bit about what the house is going to be like for you guys.
Certainly the central element of it will be circular, and then square or rectangular sections off that.
I think it's important that, you know, some of us try these things and see how it works. And
But the other we're not actually, you know, it's not hair shirt time. We are actually trying to design a house that is comfortable to live in, rather than just thinking about, OK, well, we don't want to use fossil fuels, therefore we're going to freeze in the winter and we're going to do this, you know. So, but you've got to think differently about how you do things like that, you know.
so in the summer it's nice and cool in there, but in the winter it keeps the heat in as well, which is great. So it's just the perfect material, really.
And it's like building with Lego as well, so you just...
Right, yeah, they're quite big blocks, right. So you're hoping it's going to save you some time.
It's certainly time, yes.
This is one you made earlier.
Yes.
Yes, this is our barn.
Wow, this is amazing. Really striking thing about this are these extraordinary lumpy walls we have here. Tell me what's behind this render.
Well, behind that render is hay.
And straw is what's actually recommended for building. People don't recommend using hay.
And straw will be what you'll use on
It is what we'll use for the house. We wanted to try it because it was here, it was in our 5-mile radius, and it's a big experiment to see how long it lasts.
And like all experiments, I mean, I can see a few cracks and I hate to draw attention to them, but I mean, you were sort of learning as you go throughout the build of this.
Yes, which is why really we wanted to do this first.
Yeah.
I am getting excited, actually. Yeah, this is like, oh my God, we're really going to build a house, kind of. In a conventional build, there are very definite plans drawn up, but with an eco thing like this, you're working around the materials that you have, so things can change.
Because we've got no hard and fast picture of what the building's going to be like, it'll change over time. That's part of the fun, really.
That should be in the centre. Let's go back to you.
Happy? At the moment, we're just laying out the roof, so we can decide where we want to put the posts. Once we've done this, we'll then know how big the central bit of our house is going to be. Just try and visualise it in 6 months' time.
All right. Door into, then post there. Yeah, I can't really see it.
That's it. Because we were after some kind of accuracy.
I suppose in this country we always conceive and act out buildings in a very conventional way. The materials are made for us by other people. We go to shops and we buy them, and buildings are expensive things that people with skills build for us. But actually, I feel really excited by the idea of a couple going it alone, with minimal skill, minimal money, just going about the building of their own house and living the dream.
And I must say, the last thing that I think Jane wants is to be living in a failed experiment. I mean, it needs to really, come to fruition in a way that's robust and can be a house house for life.
You know, I must confess that alarm bells are ringing. You know, there's no drawings. There doesn't appear to be any kind of plan for how they're going to go about this thing. So I worry at the moment that they're going to be able to do this.
This is the worst kitchen I've ever had. And it's having lived 3 years now in a caravan. I can't believe it's that long. But 3 years in a caravan without proper washing facilities. We've got a sink and, you know, to be able to have a shower or a bath, my goodness. It's just made me realise as well how much I really need my house now.
Making the frames good, and then putting the bales in really quick, and then it's just applying the render or whatever the finish just takes forever. There are certain bits where it's quite important to get it right, and so we've got so far, and you can do it with an axe, bash away, but that last couple of millimetres has got to be right, so it fits nice and tightly together.
I'm used to pieces of wood that are all planed and square-edged. And, you know, I'm not used to working with wood like this. And a lot of that's going on training your eye to see, you know, and going on intuition rather than measuring. And I find it really, really hard. Yeah. God.
I think she's doing fine, yeah. And it's just that self-confidence thing. When you do something for the first time, you don't want to make a mistake.
Whoa. I'm not sure. Oh. I'm not sure that we've got this one in the right place. Oh, no. That will be sticking out about 3 centimetres. And we've got about 1 centimetre or so in there, which I don't think is good. That moves up. Oh, well, yes, that's fine. That was easy.
This is Stock Orchard Street. It's a house at the end of a fairly unassuming cul-de-sac in North London. And this is the home of 2 architects, of Jeremy Till and Sarah Wigglesworth, who have used it in a way to kind of figure out what kind of technologies work really well for a sustainable building in a city. This part of the building is made out of straw bales. It's insulated with straw bales. This was one of the first buildings to really use straw bales, one of the first modern buildings. What straw bales are tremendous for is insulation, but the enemy of straw bales is moisture and any kind of rain. And so they coat it in a thin screen of plastic. What they've got right here is the envelope of the building. It's highly insulated, ventilation works naturally. You know, it's a building that doesn't get too hot in summer, doesn't get too cool in winter. It gets all those basics right, and once you've done that, then you're free really to create the space you want to create. And if you look at the window reveal, you see just how thick these walls are. You know, there's really serious insulation in there. That's keeping the temperature in here really consistent and not losing any heat at all. I also like their furnishings. It definitely betrays an attitude to reuse and to making do with what you can find. This is not a million miles away from Jane and Andy, but perhaps there's a bit more of a kind of pop cultural sensibility here. You know, you can take stuff from an industrial site, from a building site, as well as from the forest. It's about, you know, using what you can get. This building took quite a long time to build. It took 4 years. It was anticipated to take 2, so double. The cost was £600,000, which, you know, for the amount of space here, seems to me to be pretty efficient. But in Jane and Andy's terms, it's just another universe.
Well, it's kind of fantastic site, has to be said. I mean, it faces due south, looks across the valley, you know, kind of stunning sights. It looks ambitious, and actually it's much harder than it looks. You know, there's a kind of joint, a three-dimensional joint that's been cut up there that someone's really had to kind of think about. And it's quite a complicated thing to do, even to put up a frame that looks as simple as this. I guess if it was my site, I'd want to really quickly get the frame up, get the roof on, and get a covering on for winter, so they can get in an environment that they can actually do work when it's kind of raining or windy or cold. Actually, one does have to be highly organised going about building specifically a low-cost dwelling. So what are they going to achieve by when? How much is that going to cost? How much can they do themselves? You know, so how are they actually just going to go about it in a practical sense to build a house, a beautiful house? Hi, I'm Piers.
And I'm Andy.
Good to meet you. Hi. Okay. So how do you build a house with no drawings?
It's really the form of the house is determined by what comes out of the woods, really.
Yeah. I mean, potentially using a kind of ad hoc method to kind of build is very exciting. You know, it's also, as you probably know, quite dangerous. It's hard, you know, it's hard to kind of predict and preempt. And
absolutely.
And I guess what makes me a little nervous is just the kind of how do you forward plan if you don't quite know what you're building.
This stage is very. It is time-consuming, yes, and sometimes you have to redo things. And but
how do you know it's going to be beautiful unless you can draw it and judge it? And you know, I mean, do you trust just be able to make it up as you go along? You know, do you trust that it's going to be beautiful?
Yes, absolutely.
The critical thing is finding a strategy that allows you to be in 3, 4, 5 months' time. And I would focus on getting a shell that I could move into and put a roof on reasonably quickly. Actually, what I would do is build a simple barn. But in a way, I would do one that you can move into and then finish the other. But I think doing everything all in one go is potentially overly time-consuming. But fundamental to it, I think, should be a construction that's simple and quick, really.
But we've done simple and quick before, you see.
Yeah.
So. I like the idea of incorporating found things into buildings, but quite often the act of incorporation involves a hell of a lot of work.
Well, I think it involves less work than the complex connections that each of these things have. I mean, look how that looks so time-consuming, that frame, you know. And what you're doing out there is quite a high-skilled thing. I wonder whether there's a way of just slightly rethinking it so things can sit on top of one another and, you know, you can simplify the connections and, you know. The site feels to me slightly kind of abandoned, and I worry about the momentum is slightly kind of waning.
Definitely, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're sitting looking at the beginnings of a building that I'm hearing you're going to be living in by March.
We're not going to be living in there by March.
No.
Andy's being very optimistic.
Yes.
I think the thing is, I'm just like you. I share all those concerns about the time scale, and a lot of this kind of the ways and means of doing it are in Andy's head, but that's not being really necessarily translated to me.
At the moment we're having the debate about the indoor toilet, and I don't particularly want an indoor toilet. Building reg says I've got to have one, Jane wants one, so where are we going to sit with that,
It's called a tree bog, and the reason they're called a tree bog is you plant trees around them, and the roots from the trees and things around it, they'll suck up those nutrients. You're not having to handle it at all. It's absolutely fine sort of using the toilet on a nice sunny day, in the daytime and whatever, but I must say on those cold winter nights, sometimes it's hold it in.
Having not had an indoor toilet for 3 years, it just seems... It seems very, very odd to me to go inside to go to the toilet now. Yeah.
Andy's not quite as bothered about those things as I am. He can really sort of put up with washing in a bowl and the rest of it. And but for me, it's a massive, massive thing.
If you ask Norman Foster what his favourite building is, it's the Boeing 747. It's his favourite piece of architecture. They're incredible things, that they're so precisely built, they're so beautifully crafted, they're beautifully made, they're beautifully engineered. Jane and Andy made some sensible choices today. They could get some finished sections of their building, or semi-finished. It is quite cutting edge. It could be incredible. Hi, Jane.
Hiya. How are you doing?
Good to see you. Hi, Andy.
Hiya.
Good to see you. So, here we are, up on the top floor of the 747.
I've been on very few airplanes in my life, and it's very strange.
I enjoy the slight paradox that what you're trying to do is build something out of incredibly local materials that are very low in embodied energy. And there's a very strange issue with being on an aeroplane, which is right at the other end of the scale from what you're doing.
I actually really like that. I hadn't really thought of that side of it until we're here. We're sort of having this conversation, but I quite like the two kind of extremes.
Yeah.
I'm very keen to use other people's rubbish in the building.
Yeah.
And, if you look at it in terms of embodied energy,
Sure.
this energy's already been spent.
Absolutely.
If throwing this away, we'll take it all off the hands,
Yeah. The insulation I know you can get for nothing. They will fill a skip for it, and it can just be bagged up and taken away. Or you could get a whole section of the plane for not a huge amount of money. So a few £100, you get a huge section of this plane that you could use as a ready-made bit of building. There is the whole issue of the loo as well, and you could potentially get this whole loo pod and put it into your house. And where are you on the loo debate?
let's start with an easy one, shall we?
What is the toilet debate?
Well, he wants to go outside. He likes the idea of this. But I say, look, fine, he can go up to the garden, but we'll have an indoor one. And he's not using it in the winter.
But things like... How about this as your front door?
I don't know. It's pretty cool, but...
So I guess I had this idea that you could take this and put it on its side and maybe even make it your front door. So you walked in through this
Wow.
or something.
That's brilliant. I love it. It would feel really like a hobbit house with like a little round hole. With,
Yeah.
How on earth would we make a door to go? I do not know.
We're just looking at the rear pressure bulkhead.
Rear pressure bulkhead. Yeah.
This is the sort of shape that I'm interested in, and the pattern
Yeah.
as well, and
Yeah.
just the fact that it's just the construction of it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I was thinking about this aperture that I've got and what am I going to fill it with, and it could possibly be something like that.
Let's do a deal on the bulkhead. What are we, 50 quid?
I've absolutely no idea.
If we said 250 quid and we'll cut it out for you, does that sound like a good deal?
Bit lower. How much lower? 200?
That's as low as I'll go. 200 to get a coffee with it.
I have no clue about
I think it'll answer quite a lot of problems. You're the one who's got the money.
And it's his birthday.
but I think
Okay. Happy birthday, darling.
I do quite like the idea of taking something from sort of a fairly high technology thing and putting it into a tatty pile of sticks that we're sticking in a field in the middle of Wales. Just bring on your tat, we'll use it. We'll make a house out of it. That's the idea.
Worldwide opportunities on organic farms. You contact a host who's got a farm or a small holding, and you do usually sort of maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours, 5 days a week, and you get food and board in return.
We've had gale force winds, constant rain, apart from when it snowed, yes. So it's just been setback after setback, really, in terms of the weather. Our water supply froze, and, you know, we're trying to cut enough wood to keep the fire burning, to keep ourselves warm. The build is just a small part of everything else that we're doing. For the first time since probably nearly a year, we had to buy some veg. And then sadly, about 3 days ago, the fox came and had more than half my ducks. And now I'm nursing one duck and he seems to be recovering, but we were planning to eat him, but I just can't bear the thought of doing that now. I'm nursing him back to health. It just feels really wrong. There are times when I do think that. I think, oh, what am I... Why did I leave that nice house in Sheffield? And central heating would be wonderful. I cried. It brought tears to my eyes. This email popped through And oh my goodness, I'm like, wow! And I literally had tears in my eyes.
The toilet debate is still going on, and we'll see.
So the jury's out on that, but we're having an indoor one. Oh, yes.
Somebody say when. You ready, Simon?
It's really exciting. I can't believe it. Once the roof is on, it will feel like a proper building. It's an amazing day for me. I'm just completely overjoyed. It's wonderful.
Come on. Only 23 more to go.
So, if we can get that up, I'll get the forklift. You got it, Chris?
Right, can we hold it there?
Yeah.
The Charlie stick is a temporary feature in the middle there, and that is supporting the initial rafter that went on the first one. And then the first one is then supporting the second one, and the second one supporting the third one. But by the time you come all the way round, they're all supporting each other, and the stick can come out. And that is the moment of truth.
In terms of materials, I don't expect this roof to cost more than maybe 100, 150 quid.
Oh, that feels quite good.
We nearly have a complete roof. Wow. So now, we need to take this pole out.
Can someone pass the floor?
Moment of truth. I'm sort of like really excited and really want to sort of get that stick down. I suppose in theory it could all come down.
I don't even want to think about the possibilities of what might go wrong. Yeah. And which way do I jump if it all falls down?
It's coming down.
Bottom up to there, like, yeah, move the rafter.
Doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
It worked! Hey! Oh, thanks everyone.
Jen and Andy are kind of attempting the impossible in some ways. I mean, when architects talk about doing sustainable buildings, they always talk about the need to spend more money, not less. And Jen and Andy have got one of the smallest budgets we've seen for their house. I'm really worried that they can't square that circle. Hi, Jane.
Hiya.
How are you?
How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Working hard.
You didn't bring the sun with you then.
Terrible weather. It's awful out here, but you still got a smile on your
Yeah.
face.
Because the weather's been like so bad, so things like getting the timber out of the wood, like we had
Right.
to wait for the chap who's got the big dumper truck so we could borrow that. And of course on sunny days he was trying to get his work done.
Right,
You know, because they've, you know, it's like this knock-on sort of effect. So,
So not only is it hard to build in these conditions, but it affects all of the resources that you're hoping to beg, borrow and steal in a way.
Yeah.
So tell me how far you think you are from actually moving in.
To me, it just, I haven't got a kind of end, kind of sense of an ending at the moment. It still feels like there's just so much to do. I do feel pressure because of the conditions of our planning, and if after 5 years we have not proved that we've made, you know, 75% of our needs from the land, then in theory they could just, you know, kick us all off and bulldoze a place or something.
Trying to be self-sufficient, trying to generate power, trying to grow food, all of those things are things that we take for granted. You know, most people take for granted, but you're really you're living really up close to how these things are actually made, and it must be tremendously hard work.
It is tremendously hard work, and, you know, particularly when it's cold and we want to be warm. So there, you've got to source wood, you've got to chop wood, you've got to, you know, season wood, and you've got to forward plan these things. So you need to be thinking about next winter's wood now. You can't just focus on the build. I don't particularly mind that, but, you know, I will mind it if I don't have a house to live in. You know, I would really like to be in a house for the winter.
Yeah. I mean, another winter in a caravan, doesn't it?
It's just grim. It's really grim.
It's really difficult to see how they can move forward because they're not going to get a big influx of cash to solve their problems. That's not their philosophy. I think we have to accept, you know, people watching this process have to accept that this is the way they want to live. And if it takes time, then it takes time. They want to be in here, but for them, you know, this is their lifestyle, working on stuff, you know, being self-sufficient. And this is what it means. It means slow, sometimes agonising progress. It exhausts me to imagine what their daily life is like, maintaining a fair-sized small holding here, animals, vegetables, trying to be off-grid in terms of power, trying to source their own water, sourcing all the building materials, managing a volunteer workforce. All of these things just are just too much, I think, just so much of a challenge. I just wonder how they're ever going to make any progress. Well, this house is a really interesting architectural phenomenon because, you know, it's built with sustainable principles, but actually when you look at it, it looks like a quite lovely place to be. It's got these huge picture windows facing this fantastic view, and it, for all the world, looks like a building that's all about enjoying this landscape. But embodied in here are some of the principles that Jane and Andy have been trying to conform to, about sourcing local materials, about having low embodied energy in the production of building materials, and of course having a building itself that's well insulated, that doesn't use too much energy. So it's an interesting combination of eco principles and also a building, I think, that's quite successful for its site. The owners have decided, well, look, we want a great view, we want a great double-height space lit by these huge windows, and so we're going to have great windows, but you can't source these from within 10 or 20 miles of this site in Scotland. These are windows that are high-quality, high-performance products, and they've come from Denmark. I think the other thing you notice right away in here is the care and attention that's been paid to the details. I mean, of course, the timber frame is beautiful in its material, but these wonderful pegs that hold it together and the carpenter's marks that are left here, very prominent. You know, to me, tell a story of pride in this kind of construction, in the craftsmanship, and you know, I think that adds a lot of character. I think for Jane and Andy, and especially Jane, maybe this can give them hope, because you know, you can imagine them too finally sitting in a place that's well insulated, that has nice acoustics, that you can cook and enjoy a meal in, and you still enjoy the landscape, and know in the back of your mind that yes, it's a low energy building.
People often ask me if I have any advice to a self-builder, and I say yes, well, the best piece of advice is don't.
Right. Is that just because it's just difficult and a tough process?
I think because probably most self-builders completely underestimate the impact it's going to have on their lives, their relationships, their health, their finances. The idea was to try to use very low-cost material, namely flagstone that is sold by the ton for use as crazy paving.
And how long did it take you, this intricate pattern?
About 18 months, not all the time, but I averaged about 8 stones a day.
And what for you was the importance of investing that kind of time in a thing like that?
It grew on me, and it became my, I suppose, the piece of the building that I really wanted to put my heart and soul into. And so it turned from being a flaw into being a work of art, if you like.
It sounds like the message is, in a way, not to lose sight of the things that are really personal to you. So this is a really impressive building. It's a beautiful building. It's a lovely place to live. But tell me how long it took you.
Well, we started building the frame, the skeleton of the building, in mid-2004.
Right.
So 9 years ago.
Wow, it took you 9 years.
And we're not finished yet.
This has been a real learning day for me about just what it takes to get through a project like this. I think Jane and Andy's expectations were high about how quickly they might be able to get this thing done. But this building proves that the parameters, the conditions they're trying to conform to are just too much, and that whatever they do, it's going to take them years to get anywhere near finished.
Building a house can break you, even if you employ a team of contractors. I've known relationships disintegrate. I've known people go to the brink of madness trying to build a house. And they're trying to live off the land and build a house with the worst winter I can remember. This is about the first sunny day we've had. Every second is critical. Days like this need to be seized. You need to be working 18 hours with as many people as you can possibly get. Let's talk about the structure of it.
I've got some drawings, actually. It's
Drawings?
as good as it gets. So we've got two options. We can either incorporate the star like this and then run... and this is in this direction here, yeah? So we can run these primary, or the subframe, out straight like that.
Yeah.
So we need to simplify it because we don't want to have loads and loads of posts coming into one point because it's just too busy. So we need to make a square.
Yeah. And you won't see this structure either, will you? So it doesn't need to be beautiful. It needs to be quick and efficient.
Yeah, simplicity is the key, isn't it?
There isn't a great stack of timber, so this actually is a very efficient use of material.
Yeah.
It's really good when volunteers turn up who've got skills and stuff, and it can really kind of move it forward. I actually feel quite confident that we could have a floor down by the end of today.
Amongst ourselves, we've thought of quite a few different ways of doing it. So we'll just see what we end up with here. And that's kind of, I mean, this is a really collaborative building anyway, so everybody who's come has brought something different. It's all sort of on the hoof, so it turns into something that you weren't quite expecting anyway. So, yeah. Fortunately, I've got no fixed ideas about anything at all, so it's quite easy to adapt.
So what we're doing is, instead of building a beautiful but complex structure like this, we're doing a very, very simple structure because you're not going to see it. So there's a pair of beams that'll run across this and a single beam either end, and then we can just lay the joists on top of that very quickly with no cutting, no fiddling around. So, Andy, we're going to get the floor down today?
Oh, I think so, yes.
So I've got to get you plumb now.
There's a real buzz about it today, actually, and it feels like a lot is getting done. And it's kind of really, really, really lovely that someone else is doing it.
We've got something that's different to what I envisaged. We'll see how it turns out. But as you can tell, I'm not too precious about things. And we're going to have a floor that's roughly the right height, roughly the right place. I'm just going to be interested to see what it looks like when they've done it, because they seem to be shoving an awful lot of wood down just for the sake of saving a few saw cuts, but we'll see.
Perfect. Jane, I was wondering if you could step up.
If it holds my weight, we're all okay. I'll give it
Tell us what you think.
Oh, yeah?
Kitchen table. It's different, but it's very straight lines, and because I would never have thought of putting a double beam in, which has saved a lot of work. I tend to fall into the trap of looking at the materials I've got and not have as many supports as we will have to have. And you've done it a different way.
Yeah, yeah.
There we go. I'm probably working very, very inefficiently because I'm tired and because sometimes it's a bit miserable you're on your own.
I suppose I just think of all the other work we've got to do.
Yeah.
It's turned out to be a totally different shape to what I was thinking about at 8 o'clock this morning. Worse or better?
Different.
It's just different.
All I can feel is the weight of their burden of this building that's really dragging them down. I can see how desperate Jane is for the house. She needs to be in. This is crushing her. But at the moment, I've no idea when she's going to be in the dry. My tendency as an architect is to really try to push things forward. We got the floor down, but this is Andy's baby. He needs to nurture it. He needs to craft
every little bit of it at his own pace. And this isn't the project that I'm used to, where there's a strict programme and things need to be moved forward.
Hiya.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
All right. Yeah, really well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Pete.
How are you doing?
Oh, really well. How are you?
Hi, Andy. Good to see you. How are things?
Okay.
Really well.
And you're progressing with the build?
Slowly.
Slowly but surely, yeah.
But you haven't quite hit the deadline, though, of that you were hoping to with the completion.
No, nowhere near, but there we go.
And Jane,
Yes.
you've obviously been putting in a lot of work
Yep.
here in the
The garden is just abundant.
And you've got a small army of volunteers on site today. And
Got 4 volunteers, I think, at the moment.
so, Andy, what has led to the delay for completion, and how far behind in your mind are you from where you'd like to be?
I think we're probably at least 6 months behind, I would say, something like that. And, what did you say?
6 months, I think, is too optimistic.
So there's loads of change here since I was last here. It's really exciting to see. Jane, what do you think when you see this? Does it start to take a bit more shape in your mind?
I like the beauty of it, and that's that does excite me, actually.
Presumably this will go up fairly quickly once you have the base in place and once the straw bales go up.
Well, I am a little worried about doing this now, in that we're in the autumn and the winter coming.
How long would it take you to get the walls up here, do you think?
A couple of days.
But then you've got a roof, in theory, to put on, haven't you?
We've got to have everything ready. This is my one. I think we've got to know. None of this scratching our head and working out how we're going to do it. I need it laid out, like a Lego instruction, really.
But is it tantalising seeing this and knowing that actually with a fair wind, a bit of labour, you could actually be in the warm and dry? Or are you happy, I guess, to just let it take the pace that it will? And
I think that's probably an important thing to do now, really.
What, let it take the pace?
Yeah.
It feels like it's quite urgent for you, though. Like you're not quite willing to let it just take as long as it takes.
Well, I just want the damn thing done.
I wonder whether there was a... So this is the installation from Kemble, isn't it?
Yep.
It's reclaimed, salvaged from an aircraft.
Yep.
And what are you doing with it here?
So what's happened was that's been stored in bags under tarp on some pallets, and when we came to use it, it's got damp. This is what's held up now the roof. We thought the roof would be on by now.
I do like to try and find a use for materials that I find,
We're like wombles, aren't we?
Can you tell me a bit about how much you've spent so far on this build?
Less than 1,500 quid on what we've done.
But that's absolutely astonishing. I mean, 1,500 quid, what does that buy you? A flat screen TV or something?
Well,
and you've got most of a house for it. It's kind of astonishing.
See what you can do when you don't watch TV.
It's absolutely astonishing.
I was expecting this to be a low-cost build, but I was really flabbergasted when they said they'd only spent £1,500. I mean, people spend that without thinking these days. As a champion of low-cost building, I've been floored by this project. I mean, I've really seen what's possible for very, very little money, and I'm in awe of that. So could this take both of us at the same time?
Of course it can. So now we're using carpet to make a little envelope for the aircraft insulation.
He needs to obsess over every detail. He needs to work it out. He needs to think it through. And this way of going about a project isn't for everybody, but it is for Andy.
It feels relentless at the minute. It's been so slow that we both know that we're going to be building again next year, all year, again, the same.
But I mean...
It's like, I just want the end of the building to stop.
I mean, how does it feel that now the build has been delayed, so you might not meet your aspiration of being in for the winter?
Yeah, that's a bit of a setback, actually. Yeah, but we've done, what, 3 winters in that caravan already. Yeah, I mean, I always thought it was optimistic, Andy saying that we'd be in there by Christmas, and clearly we're not going to be in there by Christmas.
The guy I met in Scotland, he'd said, it took me 9 years and it's still not finished. You know, that was the reality of the process.
I think if I thought that was going to be another 9 years, I might actually go back to Sheffield.
Is there, in your mind, a threshold?
I think in my mind, probably another 2. I think I would be going absolutely crazy if, it went on any longer than that. I really do not want it to go on any more than 2 years. So this is my last winter in that caravan.
Right, you're absolutely...
Absolutely, that is my cut-off.
Looking forwards to the completion of this, because, you know, you can't live forever in a caravan. What was that deadline for you?
That was another 2 years, winter 2014.
You think you'll hit it?
No worries. Yeah.
Good.
No worries. What confidence. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, we're definitely having an indoor toilet.
So
yeah, we'll have to.
We'll have a his and hers door.
And he's never using the indoor one in the snowy winter's evening.
We desperately need the house, well, to start our family in our own space.
How much money have you got, though?
60 grand, top whack.
So there seems to be a problem there.
If this couple fails to do this, it's sending out a message that good quality affordable housing is unachievable.
Justin's getting very stroppy, and obviously everything's my fault.
It should be watertight, but how's water managed to get in behind there?